Star Wars used to be one of the most beloved franchises in all of entertainment, but that all changed when the twisted mind of George Lucas was left unsupervised and unchecked by a medical professional, and he was able to army crawl himself away from Arkham Asylum and onto a chair in front of a pen and paper and write the prequels. Now let me just get this on the table right now. I know episodes 1 through 3 of Star Wars are objectively awful movies from pretty much any perspective you can spin on them. But tell that to my penis that still gets hard with a nostalgia boner every time I rewatch one or see one on TV. There's something special about the charm of those movies, and it's probably just how old I was when I saw them that it still holds a special place in my heart. But they are shitty movies, and that is where Star Wars goodwill kind of died. And you know the story from there. Disney digs up the grave of Star Wars and Mickey Mouse forces it to dance like a twisted puppeteer. They got off to a good start with Force Awakens. I thought that was pretty solid, but everything from there has just been an absolute asshole fire. Just pure, putrid, awful abominations from Disney Star Wars movies. But Star Wars has been dead long before Disney started fucking it, so what Disney's doing to Star Wars is just necrophilia. What I want to focus on today, though, is the story about Jake Lloyd, the child actor who portrayed Anakin Skywalker in Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. This is a very interesting story about how George Lucas not only ruined a beloved franchise, but ruined a 10-year-old's entire life. Jake Lloyd was dealt a bad hand as a result of that movie. A little background on Mr. Lloyd. His parents were in the entertainment industry, so they knew their way around the field, and he wanted to get into it, so he landed some small roles in television shows and a few movies. Had a big breakthrough with Jingle All the Way with Arnold, which is a Christmas classic, and then his big breakthrough should have been Anakin Skywalker in Phantom Menace. That kind of role with that kind of power with Star Wars coming back with the prequel was absolutely fucking massive and should have catapulted his career, but all it did was catapult him into depression. The movie was a stinker. You all know the story. No one really liked The Phantom Menace even at the time. It's not something people look back on and now shit on. Even at the time, people were actively dropping trousers and putting a fat asshole on the movie, calling it bad. And most of the blame was shouldered by Jake Lloyd's character, thus Jake Lloyd himself. So as a 10-year-old kid, that's how old he was when he played Anakin Skywalker, he had neckbeard greaseballs attacking him on all fronts of the internet because they blamed him for ruining Star Wars. Instead of the blame falling on the rightful shoulders, which should have been George Lucas or Jar Jar Binks, who Jar Jar did catch a lot of shit, obviously, but for some reason it was almost all targeted at Jake Lloyd's character and his portrayal of the character. This is a thing I've talked about in recent times. People seem to blame the actors when the character is bad or if the acting is shitty, but that is 100% on the shoulders of both the writer and the director. The writers write these characters, so if they're a shitty written character, that's not the actor's fault. They're working with the 9th graders' homework that they were given for their script. If the character's acting is bad, that's the director's fault because they weren't leading them properly. It's not like the acting just became bad as a result of the editing or what happened. If the acting is shitty, it's because it was shitty when it was filmed, which means the director should have done another take until they got it right. I don't think that kind of blame should ever fall on the actor for their portrayal of a character, but that's exactly what happened here to a 10-year-old. And Jake Lloyd himself said not only was getting shit on by these adults on the internet a contributing factor to his depression and a lot of the bad shit he went through, the children at school would bully him for being Anakin Skywalker, which is fucking baffling to me.
Part of my life for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it something
High
like
school is, they wouldn't let it go, so.
It's just such a weird thing to insult someone for. Oh, what a fucking loser. You were in one of the biggest movies of all time as the lead character. What a dweeb. You'll never be successful like that. I'm gonna go back to eating glue and huffing Sharpie fumes like a real alpha 5th grader. It's just a weird target for bullying and really unfortunate for Jake, because that's something that even if the movie was bad, you should still be very proud of. I know I certainly would be. Like, if I had a lead role in The Room or an equally acclaimed awful fucking movie, I wouldn't let people forget I was in that shit. I love that kind of shit. I fucking brag about being in a voice acting role for a cameo character in a game that sold 8 copies on Steam. You wouldn't want to see me as a lead role in fucking Star Wars or something like that. It's just a shame what happened to Jake there, both from adults and in his school environment. Also, George Lucas had him working like a fucking sweatshop worker. Jake Lloyd said he was doing up to 60 interviews a day for Star Wars, which is just an unbelievable number. I can't even believe that shit. I don't know who could even stand that as an adult, let alone a 10-year-old kid. But even still, I understand Star Wars fans aren't the most intellectually enlightened. They're no Rick and Morty fans when it comes to intelligence, IQ, and that kind of supreme being intellect, but I don't know why they'd still blame the child instead of a more obvious blemish on Star Wars, Jar Jar Binks, who did shoulder a lot of shit, but not near to the extent that Jake Lloyd's character did. I mean, Jar Jar Binks, for God's sakes, his whole contribution to the movie was always, Misa make white pee-pee when Misa see you, Natalie Portman. Like, how can that not be the most glaring issue of the fucking prequels? I don't know how it'd be on Anakin Skywalker, who's just playing a fucking kid who likes pod racing and has a midichlorian count in the 9 figures. It's just a stupid fucking fans targeting the wrong fantasy characters if they really want to get into this, like, limp-dicked fantasy where these characters are real and the movie is ruined because of these characters and not George Lucas's batshit awful writing. But, so, moving on from there, Jake Lloyd quits acting at the age of 15. He develops a phobia of cameras because of all the bullying and the ridicule in the interviews, and he no longer ever wants to be filmed. He still does some voice acting for Anakin in the Star Wars video games that come out for the next couple of years, but altogether quits that around 2005, 2006, I believe. And then from there, it's even more downhill. He did a few appearances at some Comic Cons in 2012 and before, but it was always out of obligation and just wanting a quick little buck to show up. Nothing wrong with that, but he'd always get questions about being Anakin Skywalker, which he very clearly hated. The interviews are really hard to watch. He's very uncomfortable, always dismissive, seems confrontational, as if bringing up Anakin Skywalker is like the Winter Soldier's trigger word, and he just goes into this zone where he hates being associated with that, and that's the saddest thing. I really can't help but feel super bad for Jake. He stops going to Comic Cons and conventions and public appearances in around 2013, and then in 2015 he hits rock bottom where he gets into a physical confrontation with his mother and then engages in a high-speed GTA police pursuit across a few counties with the police. There's footage of it, and it's a pretty fucking wild chase. He loses his tire and runs on the bare rims and then does like this fucking gnarly spin out into a fence. It was wild shit. And then, of course, pod racing jokes were the easy ones to make. So we got Star Wars joked on even for something like that. Unfortunately, Jake Lloyd's entire life revolved around his character of Anakin and the negative connotations surrounding it. Thus, Jake Lloyd was never able to have a normal or enjoyable childhood or teenage years, all because of the ridicule he'd constantly be subjected to for his one role in one big movie that George Lucas really fucked him with. And it's such a sad story because maybe Jake could have been a massive successful actor. Maybe the prequels could have been good in some multiverse out there. There's really no telling. All we know for sure is that Anakin Skywalker ruined Jake Lloyd's life. This is Star Wars Episode 1, the first Skywalker's last acting gig.
I think everyone's going to think it's a great film because it is an amazing film. You saw it last night. It was amazing. And it's really a nice, it's very nice film.
Now I should mention, after the fact with the high-speed chase and Jake Lloyd's arrest, it's important to talk about why it happened. According to Jake Lloyd's mother, the confrontation was the result of Jake Lloyd blaming her for his life being ruined because she got him the role in Star Wars Episode 1, and he never forgave her for it. Thus, they got into a fight where he pushed and kicked her, and then ran away, got arrested. Jake's mother also reveals that at 19, Jake was diagnosed with schizophrenia. That probably sounds about par for the course for anyone that works with George Lucas and is subjected to 60 fucking interviews a day as a result of working with George Lucas, the goddamn madman. So overall, just a horrible story about a successful breakthrough role leading to the demise of someone's mental health, and just genuinely like their whole life seems to have been ruined as a result of having a big role in that movie. And that's about it. Just wanted to tell the story of how Star Wars has not only been ruined as a franchise, but also ruined some lives along the way as well. That's it. So yeah. Lola Bunny has been redesigned. This is not a drill. I've seen meltdown upon meltdown right now. We're going into fucking DEF CON alert. Lola Bunny in Space Jam 2 has been changed. They wanted to avoid Lola Bunny being as sexual as she was in the 1996 movie with Michael Jordan. So in Space Jam 2, they've toned it down so that way people don't associate erections with Lola Bunny. Lola Bunny from Space Jam is iconic. Basically the genesis of all young men's first boners. She was like the tutorial boss of puberty. Kids would watch the Space Jam movie, see Lola Bunny, and get that weird feeling in their pants and then wonder what the fuck was going on. Lola Bunny is the #1 cartoon character most people think of when they think of hot cartoons or some shit like that. Not even furries, just like a general audience, since Space Jam was so big. And this is confirmed on Hive Mind, the game show Ludwig and I do on Twitch. This question actually came up. What cartoon character did everyone think was hot? Lola Bunny was the #1 answer by a fucking landslide. It wasn't even close. So, obviously I want to talk about the Lola Bunny redesign. And my heart breaks for all those Lola Bunny fanatics that have never stopped jerking their meat to Lola Bunny in Space Jam from 1996. I've seen multiple people on Twitter come forward, look at my collection of Lola Bunny figurines and animatronics and homemade stuffed toys. What am I going to do with it now with the redesign? Now it's useless. You've ruined it. So, hey, the heroes out there with the Lola Bunny collections, this is a tough pill to swallow, I know, but I'm sure we'll be able to push through it. Let me go ahead and go over the redesign. I actually looked it up on Twitch last night first, so I'll just give you my reaction to it there. I'll play the clip. Thoughts on the Lola Bunny redesign? Haven't seen it, but I heard they made her less sexualized. I think that was the dumbest thing they could have done. They should absolutely try and bring the furry audience in. I thought it was going to be a lot worse. I thought it was going to be much more drastic. The only difference is they gave her like compression shorts. She doesn't. It's pretty big actually. The more I look into it, yeah, no, yeah, never mind. I guess I was looking at the face more. Completely changed the uniform. There's absolutely like no definition at all anymore. This looks like a kid drew it, like for fan art of Lola Bunny. That's rough. This actually, to be fair, this really does look like what Lola Bunny would look like from 1996 to 2021 if she aged naturally. Titties non-existent, starting to sag, shrinking a little bit, no more muscle definition. Getting old sucks. So maybe that's what they're going for. I think that's a dumb idea. Why would you not want furry enthusiasts to go see your movie? The furry community, those people, they'll spend $15,000 for a crayon drawing of their fursona getting butt fucked. They would see your movie 10 times, 15 times even. Like, you gotta be real fucking dumb to think that there's any value in redesigning a character that furries would vibe with. And not even furries, like Lola Bunny, that's like the #1 character people say that they thought was hot from a cartoon. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're just really dumb. You're super fucking dumb. So I'm gonna be honest, I expected the redesign to be significantly different, like drastic, like Teen Titans Go shit, where they turn Lola Bunny into like an amiibo looking thing. It at least is still pretty closely resembling Lola Bunny, at least like in the facial features and everything. What they did is, in order to avoid sexualization of the character, they removed her breasts. And that's really like about it. And they made the basketball uniform more baggy. Looks like something I would have worn in middle school. That's the main changes they made. And she's also a lot less detailed. Like, there's no shadows anymore. There's no like muscle definition. She still has like wide hips. It's just a very weird change. It's like the idea that these execs have of sexualization is only titties. Okay, how do we avoid our character being sexualized? Take the fucking titties off. You know, it's kind of a weird approach to it. I just really don't see what the point is. You know, like, why even bother? You've sacrificed a lot of detail now. Lola Bunny in 1996 looks like a much higher quality production than the current 2021 Lola Bunny. There's so much more detail and clearly so much more care put into that character than this 2021 one that looks like they just hired someone off Fiverr to slap something together. I just don't really see what there was to gain with the changes, in all honesty. Sonic, for example, the redesign, that was a huge benefit to the movie. If it went forward with that like Lovecraftian abomination Sonic from the early trailers, the movie wouldn't have been nearly as positively received. But this change with Lola Bunny is just so trivial. Like, in the grand scheme of the movie, you're not making the movie better by making her less hot. You're not bringing more people in because the character's less hot. You're pushing some people out that probably would have only seen your movie to jerk off, but I mean, that's money in your pocket, and with these movie execs, that's really all they care about. They're fucking face-fucking people's wallets at the movies. Like, you know, I don't think they necessarily have a conscience about that. Keep in mind, when I say less hot, I just mean like they made a conscious decision and have made it very clear they didn't want the character to be sexual. I don't really, you know, get hard from cartoon characters. I'm not a big hentai guy. Not to be blasphemous or anything, I have no problem with people that are. It's just not for me personally. But I just, again, don't see what the point of making this decision to change these things was. I don't see there being a positive benefit. I only see like negative backlash about it. Take, again, for example, Sonic, when they announced those changes and they showed those changes, people were fucking elated. Jubilation across Twitter when they showed the new Sonic character, which was much better. Here, I haven't seen anyone celebrating the changes. Even the people that didn't like how sexualized Lola Bunny was originally, they didn't like handle it well either with this change, because their idea of desexualizing a character is just removing titties and removing all detail. It's not exactly an optimal solution. And of course, in the case of literally everything, people are screaming censorship and quoting 1984. 1984, of course, being the book that everyone quotes, but nobody's fucking read on Twitter. This is very, very obviously not censorship. You can still go back and watch the 1996 Lola Bunny original and spank your fucking skin flute till the cows come home. They've simply changed the character here because they just didn't want people being turned on by her, I guess. The people making this movie must just think movie watchers are the horniest organisms on the planet, where if, you know, men go and see this movie in the theaters and Lola Bunny's got titties, they won't be able to control their primal animalistic Neanderthal instincts. They'll just start beating on their fucking cock right in the movie theater, just whacking their penis off because Lola Bunny's got titties. So they had to take it off, otherwise the movie theater experience would be ruined. You know, I don't know why they have this perspective, but again, it's not censorship. It's just not that deep. It's an out-of-touch movie studio that changed the character thinking that it would be good for the film for some reason. I don't really understand why they got that impression, but yeah, that's really about it. It's not a good redesign. Like, even, like, let's say you didn't want the character to be, like, sexual at all anymore. I'm sure there are other ways of handling it besides just removing all fucking detail from the character and making it look like a Saturday morning cartoon as opposed to, like, a full-fledged, full-blown, big-budget movie. But yeah, that's about it. So yeah, if I was to ask you what is the most iconic moment in cinema history, there's only one right answer. It's the death of the beloved character Officer Greg in the movie The Last of the Grads. It's of course no surprise that I play this character, Officer Greg, in the movie because I'm the only one equipped with the skill set to truly embody such a powerful and moving character. So I'm going to go ahead and play the death scene for you, as well as his signature line, his catchphrase, "What do you want to do? Shut it down," which I'm sure you've heard many times by now, but maybe you didn't know it came from Officer Greg. So I'll play that for you real quick before talking a bit more about it. This fucking guy. What do you want to do? Shut it down? Fuck, I get emotional every time I see that scene, I'm sorry. Greg, up until this point, without spoilers, had cemented himself as the main character. And this is when the movie really took a bit of a turn and surprised the audience with Greg's death. Greg, God rest his soul, was such a beautiful character and really held the movie together, much like my previous role in the Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1, where I played District 8 Helper. Officer Greg was really the driving force behind this whole film, everything that happens after his death, with the characters, of course, being strongly affected by it, lamenting the fact that he sacrificed himself for the greater good. No spoilers, of course, but Officer Greg is really the entire spirit of the film. And I bet you're wondering how this was even achieved because it looks so real. Well, it's not CGI, it's not even practical effects. I just died. They just fucking straight up curb stomped me and I died. but luckily they had an on-scene necromancer to bring me back, so I was able to continue to exist. But yeah, I'm breaking the magician's code and revealing it all to you. I'm showing you how the sausage was made. The reason it looks so real is because it is. That's the secret formula to this Krabby Patty. That actually fucking happened and was filmed. Officer Greg truly did die that day. And god damn it did he go out in a blaze of glory. I also really think this scene showcases my range as an actor. In The Hunger Games, I played a much more stoic, matter-of-fact character, kind of like a father figure to the whole franchise. Whereas here, I'm playing a much more laid-back, cocky kind of guy. Well, what do you want to do? Shut it down, big guy, huh? Well, what do you want to do? Shut it down? And then ultimately leading to a very gruesome and tragic death where you can really see the panic and fear start to take hold of him, begging for his life, pleading for mercy. But there was no mercy on that day. As I'm sure you and all of Hollywood at this point are aware of by now, I am one of the finest classically trained method actors in the business today. So, on set, I said, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it the right way. We're gonna do it big, and we're gonna do it wet. So that's a real Bowie knife you see there, and that's actually my leg getting sliced. And then they said, Charlie, please, okay, that's far enough. This is more than enough realism to the film. Please, God, just stop, you maniac, you madman. I said, no, we're not done. This curb stomp? Fucking curb stomp me, pussy. They said, Charlie, no, don't, that's too far. I said, roll it. Let's go. And then bang! Officer Greg takes one for the team and cements himself as a cinema icon, a legend in film, who will no doubt be studied in college courses for years to come. Citizens Kane, more like Citizens Lame. Officer Greg is the ultimate character, and I put it all out there for this bad boy. I think Officer Greg is the finest character to ever grace the big screen, and probably always will be, until I take another role in another film. Since the last of the Grads premiere last week, audience members have been shocked by Officer Greg's demise on screen. The New York Times gives it 2 thumbs way up. No one expected to be so emotionally invested in a character. Even if you're one of those guys that's like, oh, it's all fake, it's just a fucking movie, Officer Greg's not real, you're wrong and you're a fucking idiot. Take your diaper off and become a man. Watch Officer Greg and tell me you don't get emotionally attached to that guy. It's impossible. I became Officer Greg. I fully assimilated into the role, and what you see on screen isn't Charlie anymore. It's just Officer Greg. Officer Greg's using Charlie's skin as a fucking flesh puppet. And god damn it does the movie get improved because of my commitment to the role. I just wanted to share this with you because audience members can't stop talking about the death of Officer Greg, citing it as one of the most powerful things they've ever seen in their life. Emotionally draining, but in a beautiful way, you know? Not shock for the sake of shock, but shock for the sake of making you reflect on your own life. Officer Greg was able to challenge the audience members to be introspective and really start to think about how they approach things in their day-to-day activities. I couldn't not talk about this role that I took here, of course. And that's about it. So yeah. I've been back and forth on whether or not to even make a video covering this topic because I've talked about a lot of it extensively for the last couple of years, but today someone on board the team made a statement that is so laughably awful and so goofy, I just felt compelled to once again go over the entire situation and then focus in on that statement. But I recognize that this one person doesn't speak for the entire movie or the entire brand behind it, but it's such a tragically silly statement that they put out that it's hard not to laugh at it. So, The Flash is right around the corner. It's a DC movie that a lot of people are excited for, obviously. However, it's got its fair share of controversy because Ezra Miller plays the Flash. I have covered Ezra Miller's shenanigans over the last year and a half, 2 years, whatever it's been, extensively. Ezra Miller is an absolute menace, a fiend. How Ezra Miller is not in the slammer right now boggles my mind and makes me believe in real-life cheat codes. Of course, the cheat code being fame and money. The list of crimes and accusations against Ezra is longer than the terms of service when signing up to iTunes. It's like 5 full novels worth of accusations against Ezra. It's a ton of shit. It is ridiculous. But I'm not here to really, harp on any of that, because again, I've covered it for quite some time. Ezra Miller's out here like a literal SpongeBob villain, committing as many crimes as possible over the last 2 years, collecting them like Pokemon cards. But it had no effect on The Flash. The movie's still coming out with, of course, Ezra Miller. at the front lines, lead role, and it's been a bit of a blemish for the brand's reputation because obviously, alleged kidnapping as well as a myriad of other alleged crimes and assaults and all kinds of unpleasant things. That's not empty calories. Those are pretty serious things. So the top level suits have clearly poured a ton of money into the Flash, well north of 9 figures. This is a $100 million+ production, and they obviously don't want to see it go right down the shitter, so they've been trying everything they can to mitigate the damage caused from all of this controversy. They've tried tackling it head on about, an Ezra forgiveness arc and this and that, but that hasn't really gone over well. The Accutane wasn't curing the acne here. The zit persisted, so they've tried a different approach. It's called radio silence. They're playing the no-talking game when it comes to Ezra Miller. I believe they've forbidden Ezra from even being on the PR tour, which I think the reasoning is pretty clear because you never know what might happen with Ezra Miller on a PR tour here. Shit might pop off and another chair gets thrown at an audience member during karaoke. Unpredictable. You're playing Russian roulette. So they decided, put Ezra Miller on the bench. And that's been their main tactic, making sure that the Flash launch is as squeaky clean as possible. However, this strategy of not talking about Ezra Miller wasn't relayed to one person in particular, the production designer, who made a statement today that said, Ezra Miller's performance is so good in this movie that people will forget the crimes. This movie is so good, you're gonna forget all of these crimes. I guarantee it. That's innovative marketing right there. So we go into a meat writing session here where the production designer is just singing the praises of Miller and all the work that was put in, talking about the pressure with, of course, the public being aware of all of the terrible things going on outside of the production with Miller. And, having to deal with all that pressure on set and also just working super hard, only taking 3 days off during the entire shoot, a real fucking champion, a real hero, filming 6 days a week, and Miller did their own stunts. So, really just pumping their fists, yeah, this is what hard work is all about. The crimes are meaningless now, look at this work. And it's not, what's wild, is it's not even that far-fetched of an idea. It's actually something that's been employed many times in the past. So, for example, Riot Games fell into some hot water for a brief period of time due to a lot of nasty allegations coming to light about harassment, sexual stuff, and just a very awful working environment at Riot Games, and they were sued for it. They were facing a massive lawsuit. In fact, one of the reports I vaguely remember talked about how they used to hotbox cubicles with farts. So, one of the Riot heads would go in there and just start fucking farting in people's, workspaces, which I always imagine is the most over-the-top shit, he's doing combat roles in the office like James Bond and using his ass as, a weapon with a silencer on it and just, firing poop particles in people's directions. But they had a lot of, these terrible things that all came to light. Eventually, they did settle for a massive settlement. Fucking $100 million settlement. That's a lot of doubloons. But the point is, when the public was made aware of what was going on here behind the closed doors, Riot started releasing information on upcoming projects that got people really excited. So people stopped talking so much about all of the awful workplace stuff and instead focused on all of the incredible things Riot was cooking up in the kitchen that they were now releasing a lot of information about. So the timing always made me feel like Riot's strategy was, okay, this is all bad, but what if we can take people's attention away from the bad stuff and instead put it on these projects that we know they want? So that's what they did, and a lot of people totally forgot any of this ever happened. So if that was the strategy, it worked very well. It's also what Logan Paul did. Logan Paul was facing a ton of hot water because of all the Crypto-Zoo shit, and instead of trying to swim around in the swamp, he instead just let all of that happen and then did incredible work in the WWE. He had amazing performances in the WWE, so then people stopped focusing on all the Crypto-Zoo and all the scamming stuff, and instead focused on wow, Logan Paul is a really good WWE performer. So now that's mainly all people talk about there. It's a strategy that actually has been used a lot, and it's really effective. So them saying Ezra Miller's acting in this movie is so good you're gonna forget all the crimes is not really the most outlandish thing ever. It's just pretty bold to just say that out loud. Yeah, his acting is so good, all these crimes,
you're not going to care about them. Fuck all the victims and all that. They're going to watch this movie and be blown away by the performance. They're going to stop caring that they were a victim.
I just love that the production designer got so excited. They're like,
these crimes, who cares? It's a bunch of hoo-ha in the grand scheme of this movie. This movie is more important than any of that. In Miller's performance, it stands on its own two legs. You know, damn the crimes. To hell with the accusations and the controversy. What matters is the Flash. I don't know. I just found that to be like really entertaining to read that. I'm kind of surprised that the production designer would actually say that. I imagine all of the people, like the higher ups, are probably right now with their hands over their face, just in agony now that this interview's out there, because they were so close to launch here, and you know. Not many people have been talking about all of the Ezra Miller crimes. Now they're more focused on the hype of The Flash. DC's been shitting the bed, obviously. You know, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, what an embarrassment and an absolute flop. So DC really needs this one to be a home run. And it's been a while now, so a lot of people have already kind of stopped talking about all of the Ezra Miller controversy. But this interview, once again, brings it to the forefront, which I imagine is the last thing they want right before this movie comes out. So I just wanted to talk about it because, you know, a bit of a misstep here, a bit of a blunder taking this interview and saying that. But again, it's one person. I know the production designer doesn't speak for the whole company, but it's certainly not helpful to to say, you know, the performance was so good for Miller that the crimes people are going to forget about. That's not a great look. It's really about it. See ya.
I don't like to use the word hero often, but I think what I just did is nothing shy of one of the bravest acts mankind is possible of accomplishing. I did the unthinkable. I rewatched Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver. And there's a good reason for this. This is something no sane, ordinary mortal would ever do. Watching that dog shit movie twice, unfathomable. Makes God frown for his creation. It's a day for weeping. But in my pursuit of science, I had a valid reason to engage in this torture. I didn't even dislike Zack Snyder going into the Rebel Moon series, but since I've given my review on Part 2 of Rebel Moon, I've become a victim of the Snyder cult's incessant whining online, and I actually feel bad for them. And out of spite, I decided to prove a point with this movie. I'd always heard of the Zack Snyder cult, but I never actually saw them in action until now. I'd always just assumed it was people that appreciated his work because some of his movies are enjoyable, but he's had significantly more misses than hits throughout his career. But that doesn't bother me. It's not like that offends me. You can like whatever you like. But the Snyder cult, they fight more than any of the characters in Rebel Moon does for his glory. They defend his reputation like they are personally attacked anytime someone doesn't like his work or expresses any kind of criticism of it. It's weirdo behavior. I think the movie is atrocious, and I think the first one is bad too, but the second one is particularly special when it comes to how fucking stinky it is. I think on an objective level, it fails at everything it aims to do. I'm not going to just regurgitate all of the points I made from my review a few days ago of this. However, since I made that review, the Zack Snyder cult has been in full force on Twitter, tagging me in all of their delusional posts about why Rebel Moon Part 2 is not only the best movie of 2024, but one of the best sci-fi movies of all time, and Zack Snyder is truly a creative genius that I just can't comprehend. And the 11% on Rotten Tomatoes and all of the normal people making fun of this film just really can't grasp its highbrow sci-fi nature. We're all just a bunch of troglodyte homunculus, and Zack Snyder his wisdom is lost on us. It blows my mind how anyone could have that perspective, unless this is like the only movie you've ever seen. Like, maybe if you're like 6 years old and you just got your parents' permission to use the crayons, you'd write a letter to Zack Snyder thanking him for this film, but these are fucking adults that are singing its praises. I'm usually all for letting people have their fun, but this is another level. You're doing free PR for this guy for a movie that is horrible trash. Like, he has succeeded where MK Ultra has failed. Zack Snyder has successfully brainwashed people into accepting actual fucking wet wipes for entertainment. This is a horrible film, and I'm here to snap you out of it.
I went against all of my survival instincts and I rewatched this pile of garbage. And I timestamped every single scene that's in slow motion, explaining what the scenes were and how long the slow motion lasts, so that way I could calculate how long of its 112 minutes is spent in slow motion. Now, the movie actually has a longer runtime listed, but that includes the credits, which I am excluding from this because who the fuck cares about how long the credits are? I want to talk about the actual meat of the movie. So the actual meat of the movie is 112 minutes in length. One of the main criticisms I had, as well as every other sensible person on this planet, is that Zack Snyder has an over-reliance on slow motion, and Rebel Moon Part 2 is the biggest, most criminal execution of this obsession. It is an unbearable amount of slow motion, it is insufferably cringe, and the only scar that Rebel Moon Part 2 is giving is to its audience's patience. So let's dive in. I rewatched it, and these are my findings. Now, I think it's important to the scientific study here that I mentioned that this film had me dozing off a couple of times. I think it's nearly impossible to sit through Rebel Moon Part 2 without falling asleep at least once or twice. It had me drowsy. This shit hits harder than NyQuil. It's like the Sandman constantly throwing sand in your face with the most boring movie ever. So I think there is a good chance that I did miss some slow-mo because I just couldn't keep my eyes open for the entire runtime, which is natural. So this is going to be the bare minimum of slow-mo. There might be more that slipped under my radar when I was catching some Z's watching this. So just making note of that up top. Now, there's actually no slow-mo in their intro sequence. That's when they're giving you the lay of the land, the exposition. So for the first 14 minutes, there is no slow motion. That's a huge round of applause from me for Zack Snyder there, showing restraint, not putting slow motion in the first 14 minutes, and then all hell breaks loose. At 14 minutes and 1 second, we get our first slow-mo. It's the main character giving her backstory to her lover, so after they fuck, she starts telling him about her past. This sequence lasts from 14 minutes and 1 second to 15 minutes and 26 seconds. The flashback sequence is characters walking while she info dumps, and it is entirely in slow motion for that entire minute and 20-something seconds. It then snaps out of slow motion and picks back up at 16 minutes and 42 seconds. And at 16 minutes and 42 seconds, the main character gets betrayed in a lame scene. Guy gets stabbed, and the bad guy says, "Do it." Which, side note, I think is adorable, since this is like basically a bad Star Wars fanfiction come to life from Zack Snyder. It's very fitting that he has like a Palpatine impression here, kind of, but it's really awful. You've probably seen the clips on Twitter with people dunking on it with the "do it" clip floating around everywhere. This is in slow motion, and it lasts from 1640 to 1701. There's then a brief respite from slow motion as it goes to normal speed, but then it goes back into slow motion at 1731 and lasts to 1748. And this is a character that gets shot and slowly falls. There's then more slow motion at 1826 and lasts to 19 minutes. And this is the characters shouting "murderer" as the main character escapes. This is all during her flashback sequence that she's explaining to her lover. So then, after she escapes, we then go to the present. She's now no longer in a flashback, but the slow motion, don't worry, it's coming back. At 20 minutes and 41 seconds, we have our first slow motion farming sequence. So that lasts all the way up until 2054, some high quality slow-mo farming. Then there is more slow-mo farming from 2101 to 2148. This is slow-mo farming using a scythe on the grain and picking up grain and blowing some grain. There's then a break, and we get more slow motion 10 seconds later from 2154 to 2209. This is more slow-mo farming, and a guy stares romantically at a girl. Then from 2430 to 2434, there's some space birds that fly off the grain in slow motion. From 2437, so only 3 seconds after the slow motion space birds, we have more slow-mo farming with one character, again, using scythe on the grain, and then there's characters celebrating the fun of farming, and it really seems like Zack Snyder loves fucking slow-motion farming. That really puts a wet spot in his trousers, I guess, because this slow-mo farming scene goes from 2437 to 2525.
If you've got like a fetish for close-up farming shots in slow motion, you're gonna have a ball with this movie, I'll tell you that much. Like, that's the only audience I could see being super satisfied with Rebel Moon Part 2. Anyway, there's more slow motion at 26:11. From 26:11 to 26:31, there's a character that fills up a canteen that used to be used for alcohol, and now he's filling it with water. At 27:05, there's more slow-mo farming with some characters piling the grain. This goes from 27:05 to 27:20. Then at 28:30, there's more slow-mo farming, pouring grain into bags. This goes from 28:30 to 28:55. At 29:01, there's a character dropping a grain bag onto the camera for a transition. So this is a pretty short shot. It's 29:01 to 29:04 there. Now hang on to your hats, sailors, because I got a stunning revelation for you here. We actually get over 10 minutes without slow motion here. At least no slow motion that I caught. There's a chance that I may have been catching some Z's at this point, perhaps, and I missed some. But we get over 10 minutes with no slow motion because it's entirely characters vomiting the most poorly written exposition I've ever heard into each other's mouths. Zack Snyder cannot show anything for a story. He can only tell it. The things he shows are excruciatingly painful slow motion moments. So all of the character building attempts that he tries to make are just characters telling you how you should feel about other characters. It's trash. But we get over 10 minutes of that, and it's at least at normal speed. So we go from 29:04 all the way up to 41 minutes without slow motion. And then the slow motion kicks off again, starting at 41:20 and lasting for over a minute 30. It goes from 41:20 all the way up to 42:40. And this is that scene I mentioned in my review where this is Zack Snyder's attempt to try and flesh out the characters. So he has the characters sit down and say, hey, we're all kind of like strangers, right? What are we fighting for? Tell me a little bit about yourself. They play a middle school icebreaker. So they go through and just tell their generic sob stories, and Zack Snyder plays a slow motion flashback sequence for all of them. So the first one is 41:20 to 42:48. This is a character telling his slow-mo backstory about being the general and his men being killed, and he doesn't like that. He's pretty unsatisfied there. Then the next character goes up. Her backstory lasts from 43:30 to 44:58, and her backstory is another generic sob story. And then another character goes up, and her backstory slow motion sequence lasts from 45:15 to 47:02. Her backstory is not as generic, by the way. This is the lightsaber lady. The problem is, he made lightsabers not cool. So in her flashback, the lightsabers are kind of fucking lame. Somehow Zack Snyder found a way to make his bootleg lightsabers uninteresting. Like, they're visually cool, but he uses them for nothing but the most basic moves and doesn't do anything creative with it, so it's such a fucking shame. But at least her story's not nearly as generic as the others, though it does last a long time in slow motion, like everything in his movie. Then the next character goes, and their backstory goes from 47:23 to 48:59. This is another character telling their generic sob story in slow motion, but this one has a woman doing the Titanic pose as she jumps off of a building in slow-mo. We then have another brief break, if you can believe that. We go another 10 minutes without slow motion. Boy, howdy, you've done it, Zach. Double digits again with no slow motion, at least none that I caught. And then the battle starts. So this is during all their prepping, like when they were prepping for this war that was about to unfold here at the village against the bad guys. All of that prepping, from what I could see and what I was awake for, was in normal speed. Then the battle starts, and it's strap in. We got a lot of slow-mo to cover. So at 1 hour, 5 minutes, 33 seconds, there's an explosion. And that explosion lasts from then all the way until 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 55 seconds. That's a long time for a slow motion explosion. I think we got the point, but whatever. Then at 107:32, from 107:32 to 107:36, there's a guy who gets ready to throw a grenade. Then it's in normal speed for 2 seconds, and then it's slow-mo again. At 107:38 to 107:45, he throws the grenade. Then it's normal speed for 10 seconds and goes back to slow-mo. From 107:55 to 108:04, he runs away from the explosion caused from the grenade. Then it's back into normal speed for about 21 seconds, and we pick up again with slow-mo at 108:24
to 108:59. This is the lightsaber girl having her first fight. And this is really insulting because there's 2 layers deep of slow-mo. This is a scene you've probably seen on Twitter with people making fun of it because it's trash. It's the worst action choreography you'll ever find with lightsabers. She's supposed to be this elite warrior with these blades, yet she uses them like she's playing Beat Saber with them. She seems like she's using these lightsabers for the first time. So this lightsaber fight lasts entirely in slow-mo, but 2 different kinds. There's normal slow-mo, and then there's super duper wumbo slow-mo, where anytime she makes contact with someone, it is excruciatingly slow. Like I said, you've seen the clip on Twitter most likely with people making fun of it. It's like she trips a guy, and then the slow-mo slows down even slower. Oh, it's bad. It's so bad. So that lasts for a while. Then at 109:15 to 109:29, it's a guy getting punched. So a guy gets punched, and then it slow-mos his, like, ooh, for so long. Like, the common thread here is he uses slow-mo in pretty much every single action moment, even non-action moments. There's actually just random moments of slow-mo throughout this film. But anytime he uses it, he lets it go on for so long, and it's supposed to give, like, an emphasis to it, but all it does is take all of the impact out of it. It becomes a slog and a chore to sit through action sequences in this movie, because they're so slow and dragged for so long. Like, I get it, this guy got punched. I don't need to see him, like, recoil for, like, 15 seconds of slow-mo. It's unnecessary. Next up, at 110:10 to 110:20, a bad guy throws a guy. The throw's in slow motion. Then at 111:06 to 111:20, a guy falls out of an aircraft. So we watch him fall out of an aircraft slowly, and then he splats on the ground. It's a PG-13 movie, so it's not like he explodes into gore or anything. It's not TF2. He doesn't get, like, insta-gibbed or whatever. But he falls out of the aircraft, and you see him splat all in slow motion. Then we have a 3-minute break from slow-mo, and that's kind of cool. It's normal speed nothingness for a little bit. Then we get more slow motion because the lightsaber lady's back, and every single one of her scenes is pretty much slow-mo when she's fighting. At 114 to 114:16, the lightsaber lady gets her robo-hand chopped off. Then at 114:29, we go back to slow motion. She's getting beat up, and that's from 114:29 to 114:45, it's just the lightsaber lady losing, mostly. Like, she's killing a couple grunts, like 1 or 2, kinda. But, again, this is supposed to be like a super elite warrior. I wouldn't think she'd be struggling against actual nobodies. So, this just makes her character look even less cool. Because she's struggling against fucking grunts. And it's all in slow motion, of course. Obviously. Then at 1:15:19 all the way to 1:16:23, over a minute of slow-mo, we have our good guys that are charging at the bad guys, shooting at them or hitting them with axes, all with no cover, right out in the open, only a couple of feet from an entire horde of bad guys that are all shooting lasers at them, yet every single laser is missing the good guys. It's the worst instance of stormtrooper aim I've ever seen in a movie. And this is all in slow motion, obviously, and you get to see just how goofy it is. Then we go back to the lightsaber lady at 1:17 all the way to 1:17:20. The lightsaber lady loses again in slow-mo. And then at 1:17:30, so only 13 seconds after losing, she loses again, all in slow-mo. And that goes from 1:17:30 to 1:17:40. So she loses, but at this point takes a bad guy with her. So she doesn't go to the grave alone here, all in slow-mo. At 1:19:16 to 1:19:21, a guy who got punched earlier, that guy I mentioned that got punched in slow-mo, is now running in slow-mo over to the body of the lightsaber lady. Jiminy Christmas. Then we had one of the most painful slow motion sequences here, because I have no doubt Snyder fans thought this was fucking epic, but it's so bad in the movie. At 1:19:52, all the way to 1:21:04, again, over a minute of pure slow motion, we have the good guys going hog wild. We got a good guy who kicks a guy in a chest while getting shot at from the bad guys right in front of him, missing every fucking laser shot. It is an army of foot soldiers all shooting at these guys with no cover and still missing every shot in slow motion. And the good guy kicks a guy over like a little bridge thing and he falls into the water all in slow motion. Over a minute of it. Oh. And then at 121.42 to 121.54, the good guys think they've won for beating the first wave of enemies. So they start celebrating like, we did it! The bad guys are defeated! Woo-loo-loo-loo! Yeah, SpongeBob victory screech! Only to find out that was just one wave of enemies. So then there's another wave of enemies coming, and they start shooting at them, so they're dodging the lasers in slow motion. At 122.02 to 122.10, there's lasers hitting everything but the good guys, including hitting houses and bells. So there's like a slow-mo sequence of like this tank's Gatling gun of lasers, missing all of the human beings and just shooting a bell. At 124.50, so over 2 minutes worth of no slow motion. Not bad, Snyder. But it comes back at 124.50 to 125.02. A tank blows up a building. So you see the explosion in slow motion. At 126.22 to 126.27, the tank shoots at an empty building. So slow motion, you're seeing lasers piercing an empty building. At 126.29 to 126.31, the tank keeps shooting a building in slow motion. At 126.33 to 126.45, a lady shoots a rocket at that tank and then falls over. At 127.20 to 127.24, the main character jumps doing like a, I don't know, like some kind of kickflip motion with her legs, and she shoots at some people below her. From 131.08 to 131.30, the army is moving with another tank. You're probably picking up on a trend here. It's pretty much when any character is moving or doing anything besides talking, Zack Snyder puts it in slow motion for some fucking reason. At 132.20 to 132.34, we get Robot James coming into the mega mix here. Robot James, who's done nothing for 2 fucking movies now, shows up and he's just like the lightsaber lady in that pretty much all of his scenes are in slow motion. Yippee. So Robot James is in a hero stance from this entire slow motion sequence. At 132.40 to 133.03, Robot James beats up some bad guys and starts shooting at them. From 133.05 to 133.13, Robot James jumps on a tank and opens the hatch. At 133.23 to 134.04, Robot James drops a grenade in the hatch and blows up the tank and strikes another hero pose and really lets that hero pose marinate. At 138.20 to 138.38, there's an explosion in the main evil ship. At 139.40 to 139.52, the final fight is occurring, and the main character kicks the bad guy. He then does like 3 super spins in the air like some kind of gymnast while making a really silly facial expression. At 140.35 to 140.41, the bad guy tackles the main character. From 140.44 to 140.52, the bad guy throws the main character, and she's like slowly falling after being thrown. From 143.14 to 143.30, the ship is falling and the good guys are escaping, after saving the day, obviously. From 148.15 to 148.22, they're burning their fallen comrades' bodies. So this is now like a funeral and we're watching the bodies burn in slow motion. From 148.56 to 149.06, those banners that I mentioned in my review that they gave to once again try and vomit some reasons for you to care about these 2-dimensional flat fucking shallow characters, well, those banners are now burning for the couple of them that passed away. And then at 152.10, the best moment of the movie happens. It ends. The credits roll. So, that was a lot of slow motion, huh? Well, don't worry. I did the math. I think I got all the numbers in here. There were so many to keep track of in my fucking notes here. I have to scroll for like actually 15 seconds to go through every single slow-mo instance here. But I think I got all of the numbers, and it came out to 1,256 seconds, or 20 minutes and 56 seconds worth of slow motion in Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver. That is an outrageous amount of time to be caught in fucking slow motion. It makes the movie feel like it's 3 times as long, because everything is dragging. It's like watching a movie in molasses. It's like that drug from the movie Dread, slow-mo, where everything just fucking comes to a screeching halt. It is painful. So, just shy of 21 minutes worth of slow motion in this movie. So out of 112 minutes, 21 minutes is spent in slow motion, which is roughly like 19% of the overall movie is spent in slow-mo. That's crazy. It's actually less than I thought, though. I thought it was going to be significantly more minutes. I really did. Like, I've exaggerated a lot, but I really thought we'd be pushing deep into the 30 minutes worth of slow-mo. Because when I think about this film, it's hard to think of any scene that's in normal speed. Because pretty much every scene has slow motion in it. That is completely laughable, especially considering I think there's a pretty good chance I actually missed some slow motion scenes from being so drowsy while watching this. Like, I really can't imagine how you can come up with a justification for that much slow-mo. It's too much, especially in the places it's used. It doesn't add anything. In fact, most of the time it takes away from the scenes. Like I mentioned, there are some cool scenes in the movie. But when everything is in slow motion, you get exhausted from it. So scenes that I think would be cool on their own in slow motion start to lose their luster, take the wind out of their sails, because you've been surrounded by so much of it throughout this film that you just get fucking tired of it. And also, the cool scenes would be really elevated if there was good writing present in this film, which there just isn't. If there was a better narrative crafted here with characters that actually had real depth and real reasons to care about them, then I think a lot of the scenes could have hit much harder, especially if you take away slow-mo from other parts that didn't need it. Why is there so much slow-mo farming, for instance? Why? It doesn't add any emphasis to it. It just drags on a montage of farming. Like, Jesus Christ. So, here's all the facts about Rebel Moon's slow-mo. We got the cold hard data here, and it confirms what all of us knew. That this movie has too much fucking slow motion, and Zack Snyder is way too obsessed with slow-mo as a tool in his films. Someone needs to tell him that enough is enough, stop using it for everything. Yeah, this movie's trash, though. That's really about it. See ya.
Kevin Spacey used to be one of the most well-known and well-respected actors of our time. Now, Kevin Spacey is less respected than a porta potty at a music festival. After many accounts of potential sexual misconduct came out, Kevin Spacey was pretty much kicked out of Hollywood altogether and only served to make weird YouTube videos where he was making like idle threats saying he would kill his enemies with kindness or some shit like that, which was especially odd considering 3 of Kevin Spacey's accusers have died over the last couple of years. Now, I don't think that this is some type of grand conspiracy that Kevin Spacey is having his accusers executed or anything like that. I'm just saying, talking about Kevin Spacey is a lot like mentioning Voldemort. There's a little fear behind it because of this shit. But anyway, the reason I'm talking about Kevin Spacey today is because he's getting back into acting. That's right, he's got a new movie on the horizon, and it looks like a banger. Trailer just dropped, so I wanted to just check it out with all of you. The movie's called Peter 5'8", and the marketing tagline for the film is "The guilty always pay the price." That is remarkably fitting, considering Kevin Spacey just got charged with 4 counts of sexual assault. Never before has a marketing tagline been this accurate.
And that's how I took on rectifying a life that had gone to the dogs.
I found her. She's here.
Yeah, so the whole trailer feels like B-movie indie porno from 2004. And Kevin Spacey in the trailer seems like he's a fucking android that's been poorly programmed to act. It's as if someone deep-faked Kevin Spacey onto a different actor's body. He used to be an incredible actor, but I guess the 5 years since all of his accusations come out, he's got a bit rusty, because he's delivering his lines with the same enthusiasm as someone overdosing on ketamine.
I'm actually in the market for a house of my own in the region. What can you tell me about Sam, lives over there? Let's, you and I have a couple of drinks.
If I'm being honest, this trailer feels oddly nostalgic, like an old VHS tape I would have found outside of Blockbuster back when I was a kid, because whoever rented it just decided against it at the last second, just dropped it on the curb. It is
ticking all the boxes for a generic, throwaway, dog-shitty movie. And for some reason, Kevin Spacey has attached his name to it because I'm guessing he's run out of money.
Turn that fucking town upside down.
Turn that fucking town upside down. That's gotta be one of the most powerful movie lines of all time. That shit is iconic, an instant classic. This will be the new I Am Your Father, or like Tears Lost in the Rain. Absolute genius. I don't know who wrote this, but they could very well be the new George R.R. Martin. This was a masterpiece. I wish the trailer was longer so I could hear more lines from them. I bet it got even goofier. Mary had a little lamb until I shot it. Peter, there's a terrorist in the McDonald's bathroom. Why don't you give him a quarter pounder with a side of pain? Hold the quarter pounder. Just give him the pain. Peter, preliminary reports show that this town is behind on their taxes. It's time to collect. With death. Sometimes life is cock and ball torture, but without the cock and balls. Santa Claus isn't coming this year. Is he, Peter? It's you that's coming right now to the town, and the only presents you're bringing are bullets. Reports show that 80% of this town are atheists, Peter. Why not give them something to believe in? Lead. I could go on and on and on with awesome fucking action movie lines, but those would be the only ones I give away for free. Anyway, this movie looks like cheeks. It does not look good. And Kevin Spacey should not be acting anymore. I think it's actually shameful that they allowed him to be a part of this project here, this student film level production. He'll just be diddling the staff in between lunch breaks while filming. But yeah, anyway, I just wanted to at least share a couple of clips of the trailer with all of you and let you know that Kevin Spacey's back. Kind of. And it's a real not good looking movie he's in. That's about it. See ya.
I'm sure you all know the new Fast and Furious movie just came out, and guess who saw it unsupervised? This fucking boy. Or formerly a boy and now a man. That's right, there's no clickbait here. I saw Fast 9 without my girlfriend. If you can believe this, she actually said, Charlie, I don't care about this movie, so you can just go see it without me. I had to do a fucking double take. I said, bitch? Are you serious? You don't care about Fast 9? I was livid. I damn near stormed out of the house right then and there. I swear to God, if the movie was playing when she said that, I would have went right there immediately without saying a word. I was inconsolable. Saying you don't care about Fast and Furious is like saying you don't care about oxygen. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But as I marinated on it for a while, stewing in a warm bubble bath, I really started to understand her perspective. Maybe she just doesn't understand Fast and Furious. It is a franchise that's made for burly, lumberjack men like me, like a real man's man with a face beard and a dick beard. So maybe she just can't really appreciate that, because it basically is a soap opera for men. It's even said that every time Dominic Toretto mentions family, an angel gets a Dodge Charger. I was very excited for this film, so much so that I even threw on my best tank top to get ready. I threw on a snapback, the tank top, and I was ready to join the family for about 2 hours. Dominic Toretto let me suckle on his bosom, and goddammit, I appreciated every moment of it. I'd like to talk about the movie a little bit, but I'll go more in-depth in the Moist Meter, which I'll post tomorrow. So anyway, let's just dive right in. It's like Dominic Toretto says, I live my life a quarter mile at a time. Family, 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 and family. So, the first showing today was at 3:30 p.m. and you bet your sweet fucking tiny hairless ass that I was there at 3:30 p.m. ready to purchase my ticket to the film. I didn't want any like biker gangs to get there and take up all the seats, which I'm sure they're known to do at every Fast and Furious premiere. I wanted to reserve a front row seat, the most uncomfortable seat in the house. I said, fuck it. I wanted to be as close to the family as I could possibly be. I wanted to feel the rumbling on my ass cheeks every time an engine was revved up, because it's like Dominic Toretto says, ask any racer, any real racer. It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning is winning. And those vibrations were definitely getting me somewhere close to winning. And unsurprisingly, I actually wasn't alone in the first front row seats. I was joined by a fellow man who sat next to me. Let me tell you something. I felt a really close connection to this guy. I felt like we had a neural link, bonded by overwhelming testosterone as we watched this film together. And I can tell you, I promise you, he was having a very good time with this movie, because sometimes he'd let out little moans and groans. I don't know if they were like pleasure, or maybe he had like popcorn stuck in his throat. I couldn't tell you. But it certainly was a unique viewing experience having this sidekick next to me over here, making like weird sound effects sometimes. But again, it's like Dominic Toretto says, you could fuck a horse, but why would you want to? The thing about this movie is it's exactly what you'd expect if you're like a fan of Fast and Furious. If you've seen any of the last 4 or 5, you know that it's going to be over-the-top, goofy shit, and it absolutely is here, 100%. I think that's part of the appeal and the fun of it. It's not like a bad movie or anything like that, of course. In fact, I'd argue it's the best movie ever made. Because this movie had me feeling so much testosterone swelling inside of me, I wanted to lean to the gentleman next to me and just ask for a fist bump. Maybe even put my hand on his thigh. Like, it was getting wild. Like, every single time the music would kind of slow down a little bit, Vin Diesel would come on screen and say, "Hey, pass me that socket wrench." God, I'd recoil in my fucking chair. I'd be like, get this man a fucking socket wrench. He's got a world to save. And then, I don't want to spoil anything, but they go to space. I'm pretty sure that's in the trailers. So when they said, how are we getting to space? And the solution is, we're going to fucking drive into space. It's like, well, obviously, how else are you going to get there? It's exactly what fits the male fantasy, you know? This is what we want. God damn it. My only big complaint is I think there's a little too much talking and not enough titties or action. Like, the dialogue's not bad, you know, it's very story-heavy, and of course it's a movie about family. It's one of the very few family movies left. It's very focused on it, kind of like how Death Stranding was its own genre, the Stranding-type game. Fast and Furious is, of course, known as a family-type movie. And that's great and all, but I think they really dialed it up to, like, to 10 on this one. There's a lot of dialogue, and not all of it's great, but some of it is. Like, there's some memorable lines, like the time John Cena says, "Hey, Dom, I'm not your friend." It's like, Jesus Christ, you know, like, I felt that. Like, goddamn, you know? And then he just fucking shifts gears and fucking pumps it. It's like, damn, you're gonna leave him like that? It's dirty. Then he drives off a cliff and gets picked up by a plane, you know? It's like, that's one hell of a way of making an exit. But again, I mean, no big complaints, of course. There's so many cars in this movie. Every time I hear an engine rev up in the real world, even if it's like a fucking smart car turning on its electric engine, I'm gonna get a boner. Like, tonight I'm going to hear screeching tires in my wet dreams. Like, when I was leaving the movie theater, I was ready to hop in my car and just do fucking donuts in the parking lot. I wanted to go up to strangers and ask them to pop the hood. And, like, bare hand the carburetor and then ask for a wrench. You know, like, I was feeling like a car man. Like a big car man. So, yeah, you know, I just wanted to talk about this a little bit. Because, you know, it's not every day you get to go see Fast and Furious by yourself. So, yeah, you know, that's all I wanted to talk about. That's about it. So, yeah. Why? Why do so many people ask me what happened to the real series? I've answered that goddamn question 3 separate times in 3 separate videos over the last year, and yet I am still plagued by questions every stream at twitch.tv/moistcritical, in every email, asking me what happened to the real series. It's like a fucking Winter Soldier episode where you say what happened to the real series and I fucking flick on and all of a sudden I'm just seeing red and I get a boner and it makes me sad. I get like an episode of psychosis every time someone asks me that same goddamn question. Like, I'll be going downstairs, I'll look at an email, what happened to the real series? Are you ever planning on doing more of those? And then all of a sudden, bang, my dog's fucking talking to me and I'm going outside naked. It makes me insane, the amount of times I get asked that fucking question, because nothing happened to it. I just stopped calling the infomercial videos The Real and then product name. I gave it that name, The Real, because I was lazy and didn't want to come up with a title, and I just stuck with it. But recently I started naming them. For example, the Glory Hole Repair video. This may be a big shocker plot twist here, but the Glory Hole Repair video is The Real series video. They're one and the same. They're the same fucking thing. I feel like Mugatu in Zoolander when he was trying to point out how he always did the same look but no one believed him. That's how I feel with trying to point out that the infomercial videos I'm doing now are the real videos. It's the same series. It's the same goddamn video. This isn't like a J.K. Rowling retroactive plot twist, alright? It's not like it's a big reveal. Well, it turns out the real series was actually a non-binary time traveler. It's none of that. This is actually the same fucking thing. And it's been there the whole time.
I keep making infomercial videos. I never stop. The most recent one was a few weeks back, or like a month ago. Jupiter Technology is what I called it. But I guarantee if I released an infomercial video tomorrow and I called it The Real and then the product, people would go fucking insane. Oh my god, it's the real video for the first time in years. Rejoice, this hasn't happened in years. It's like, you know, a fucking unicorn showed up when they never left. I don't mean to get aggressive. I don't. It's not your fault that you're a fucking idiot if you think the Real series is over. Jesus, I just don't understand. It's the same. I'm still doing it. I just stopped being lazy and I gave them actual names. That's all. That's really all. I don't. How do I make the question stop? Jesus fucking Christ. I still do the infomercial videos. I just give them titles now. I'm not lying to you. All right? The Real series is still here, but, you know, with real titles. You know, it's not like it's gone. The Real series didn't go to get milk and cigarettes and not come home. It's still home. I still love to do that. I really, truly don't get why it's such a common question. I've genuinely answered it 3 times, and I answered on stream at twitch.tv/moistcritical all the fucking time, and yet it is still constantly asked. I wouldn't be surprised if there's conspiracy videos popping up or like debunking the Real series versus, you know, Glory Hole Repair. Are they the same thing? Is it possible? Is he a reptilian? Again, I still do the infomercial shit, but with titles that reflect what the product is about and shit like that. Like another one, the Nothing Fucking Sticks pan. Spoiler alert, the pan was about how nothing fucking sticks to it, thus that's what I called the video, instead of the Real Granite Rock Pan. It's not only a boring title, but it makes no goddamn sense. What is the Real Granite Rock Pan, or whatever the name of the product was? I don't remember what it was now. It could have been the fucking Granite Mulch Hemorrhoid Pan for all I remember. But the point is, it makes no sense. You know, what does that say? Nothing. It's just pure laziness and just random title that I picked out. And now I prefer to name them, you know? The Nothing Fucking Sticks pan is a lot more descriptive as to what you're about to see. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't understand. The Real series didn't leave. And I know I'm going to get the question even more now that I addressed it again. I know it's coming. You know, I'm waiting for, you know, the copy pastas and the spam emails about that shit. I know it's on its way. You clever geniuses, you real meme jokesters, I know you're gonna do it. But goddammit, I needed to vent about this because again, today, 7 emails in 3 hours asking about the Real series, if I plan on doing any more of them. And if I do plan on doing any more of them, here's you know, the Shticky Buddy. You know, a fucking commercial that someone's done to death. Everyone's done to death. Yeah, you know, I do plan on doing more commercial videos for sure. I won't do the Shticky Buddy or anything because that's been done to death. I'm not going to bother, but I do plan on doing more. And no, I'm not going to call it The Real again because that is not a good name for anything. It's nonsensical, random bullshit, and I was just lazy when I came up with it. I prefer actually naming this shit now. Thank you for, well, hey, thanks for tuning into this corner of, you know, answering questions. Take it easy, everyone. See ya.